Be getting started in just 1 minute here. Welcome. We'll be getting started in just 1 minute here. And Paloma, I still don't see you on the interpretation list.
Okay,
Welcome everyone to our Smart at Home series. My name is Megan Cadell, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have Spanish interpretation available today, and we're going to orient you to that first.
Sí que tenemos interpretación para español y vamos a orientarles a ustedes que lo necesitan antes de empezar con la charla.
In 1 moment, we're going to turn on the Spanish interpretation. When that happens, you'll go down to your Zoom toolbar and select the globe that says interpretation, and then select Spanish if that is the language you prefer, or English if that's the language you prefer.
Así que en un momento vamos a aprender las funciones de interpretación en el webinar y ustedes pueden bajar a la barra de herramientas donde van a encontrar el símbolo, el icono de un globo terráqueo. Cuando hagan clic en este globo terráqueo, pueden elegir el español si quieren escuchar en español o el inglés si prefieren el inglés.
I'm going to go ahead and turn on the interpretation, and we'll give folks a moment to move over.
Voy a aprender la interpretación y le vamos a dar a ustedes un momento para cambiar a su canal.
Okay, welcome. I'm going to go over a few more Zoom access tips. And Daniel, if it's all right, I'm going to shut your camera off as well. Thank you. So welcome. If you need captions today, we do have captions available. You can access them on your Zoom toolbar by going down and looking for the CC closed caption button. If you don't see it there, it might be nested under the More button, those 3 dots, the ellipses. Go ahead and click on that and then select Show Subtitle to see the captions in Zoom. We also have captions available on Stream Text if you'd prefer to follow along on a separate device. I've went ahead and shared that link in the chat for you as well. And then if you have any questions during the event, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A for us, and we will read those out when we get to the question and answer section of the event. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Catherine to get us started today.
thank you, Megan. With all the housekeeping out of the way, let's get into today's topic. Today's installment in the Ability Tools Smart at Home series, Smart at Home Installation, will be presented by Drew Redepenning from LiveLife Therapy Solutions Inc. It will build on the foundation established with our first installment, Smart at Home Accessibility 101, and will guide participants through the installation process, non-Wi-Fi dependent device options, the Internet of Things, and the process of creating your home network. Ability Tools plans to expand into many disability-related topics, such as programming your smart home hub to interact properly with your AAC devices, customization, and environmental controls. This series is going to occur every other month and will always be free and available to professionals and the general public alike. Throughout the series, prizes will be given out to participants at random during the webinars, so be alert to hear if you won something, as we will redraw if the person drawn doesn't respond to us via chat when we announce. We'll be using polls throughout this series to interact with the audience and to collect information we anonymously report to our funders, something we need to do in order to continue providing free resources like this series. I will actually launch a poll right now to get us started. A poll form will pop up on your screen now, and I will keep the audio silent to allow screen readers to interact with the poll for accessibility purposes. Megan, the poll access went away when we were swapping around host duties.
Aha, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. We have two questions here. The first question says, how do you identify as it relates to joining this webinar? And the choices are an individual with a disability, family, guardian, or authorized representative, a representative of education, representative of employment, allied health and rehabilitation, representative of community living, representative of technology, or unable to categorize. And the second question is, in what region do you reside as it relates to joining this webinar? And the options are metro urban or non-metro rural. And so far we have half the participants have answered the question. I'm going to go ahead and leave it open for about 30 more seconds. Okay, it looks like about 81% of you have completed that poll. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and end it.
Thanks, Megan. By way of disclaimer, while this technology is beneficial for many people with disabilities, it does also worsen symptoms for those with environmental hypersensitivities. Being cross-disability, we recognize this and want to remind folks to be aware of this when designing accessibility into their homes, or those who would do such work for consumers, to ensure that home environments are optimal to those homes' occupants. And now I'd like to hand it over to today's presenter, Drew Redepenning.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my slideshow here. Okay, so today I'm going to be presenting, kind of expanding on last week's session, and talk about smart home installation. So a little background about me. I'm a biomedical engineer and assistive technology practitioner. I formerly worked as the lead assistive technology specialist at Courage Kenny Rehab Institute in Minnesota. And then, so I primarily worked in the clinic before, and then I moved to work primarily in the home. And I'm currently a AT specialist at LiveLife Therapy Solutions in Minnesota. And I volunteer still at Courage Kenny Rehab Institute and St. Margaret Center, which is a pediatric rehab center in New York. So a little bit going into our session today. So first I want to talk mostly about how different devices in your home will communicate. So it's really important to understand what different types of environmental control communication protocols are out there. So the most common one is Wi-Fi based devices. So it's the most common communication method of all environmental control devices, but it's not always the most reliable. So most people know Wi-Fi and they kind of go default to Wi-Fi based devices. So Alexa is a Wi-Fi based device and it can communicate directly with other Wi-Fi based devices. So a lot of the Wi-Fi based devices you see online are Wi-Fi plugs, lights, and other Wi-Fi based devices. And it's the most widely recognized communication method out there for smart home. It's not local. So what I mean by that is that it actually uses the cloud to communicate, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And it's extremely long range because Wi-Fi based devices can communicate anywhere where there's a Wi-Fi signal. And the reliability, unfortunately, is just highly dependent on the Wi-Fi connection in that environment and if that person actually has Wi-Fi. So I typically recommend people to only use Wi-Fi if it's the only option. And we'll talk a little bit later about other devices out there that don't rely completely on Wi-Fi. And one, I guess, benefit of Wi-Fi is that it doesn't require a hub for control with Alexa. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what that means now. So Alexa is a Wi-Fi based system. So what I mean by that is Alexa can communicate with other devices via Wi-Fi directly. So it shares a language with other Wi-Fi based devices. So if I want to connect a Wi-Fi based plug in my home and control it with Alexa, I don't need any other intermediate device to control that device directly with Alexa. However, if I want to control my TV, which is controlled by an infrared remote, Alexa doesn't understand or it can't send infrared signals. So if I directly try to control my TV with my Alexa, I'm unable to do that because they don't share the same language. Therefore, I need some sort of intermediate device or a hub so it can translate that Wi-Fi signal to an infrared signal to my TV. And this is the Harmony Hub, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But a hub is really needed when the device you want to control doesn't share the same communication protocol that Alexa can use. So it's important to know what communication protocols Alexa can use so you know when a hub is needed versus when you can just directly control it with Alexa. So all Alexa-based devices have Wi-Fi built in. So all Wi-Fi-based smart home devices can be directly controlled with Alexa. Certain Echo devices like the Echo Plus, Echo Show 10-inch, and Echo 4th generation have something called ZigBee built in. And we'll talk a little bit more about ZigBee later, but it's a more reliable smart home communication method, and they can be controlled directly with these Alexa-based devices. Finally, the Fire TV Cube is a infrared-based Alexa device, and it can actually control infrared-based devices like TVs, cable boxes directly without any intermediate hub. So one important thing to know is that the hub doesn't increase the reliability of your smart home system. It's just main use as a bridge between two communication methods. So for Alexa to control a device that you can't usually control with Alexa. So what are other communication methods that are out there? So one that we talked about a lot so far is infrared. So infrared's a direct communication method, and it's commonly used for devices such as TVs, cable boxes, and even things like air conditioners. So it's pretty much a light signal that shoots at the device you want to control. And in most cases, you need a hub to control it with Alexa, except in the case of the Fire TV Cube. And if you get a hub with it, you can actually even use Alexa to control an air conditioner, which we'll talk about later. Next is Bluetooth. So Bluetooth isn't quite as common with smart home-based devices for Alexa control, but there are Bluetooth-based devices out there, like Bluetooth-based smart home plugs or Bluetooth-based lights. It's a direct communication method, and it's commonly mostly used for music. So Alexa does have Bluetooth built into it, but it doesn't have Bluetooth built into it for smart home purposes. It only has Bluetooth for music. So if you want to control a Bluetooth-based smart home device, like a Bluetooth plug, you probably need a hub in order to control that. I don't recommend typically people use Bluetooth for a smart home because it's not as reliable and the range on it isn't very long. Radio frequency is another communication method that's pretty common in homes. So radio frequency is common in things like overhead fans. So if you have a remote controlled fan in your home, it's probably radio frequency controlled. It's common in blinds. So if you have remote control blinds, they're probably radio frequency control. And power door openers use radio frequency. So Alexa itself can't communicate with radio frequency based devices directly. So you need some sort of hub intermediate so it can translate those Wi-Fi signals to control your radio frequency devices in your home. And we'll talk about some hubs later that can control your radio frequency based devices. So one nice thing about radio frequency though is that it's a direct communication method that actually can travel through walls. It does have a range on it, but its range is much wider than things like Bluetooth. So I think the range is typically about 100 feet. So radio frequency devices actually can be controlled by a pretty far distance from your radio frequency hub. Finally, ZigBee and Z-Wave based devices, which we're going to talk a lot more about in the next up and coming slides. I think of this ZigBee and Z-Wave as like radio frequency on steroids. So it's a much more robust and reliable version of radio frequency that actually creates its own network. I'm not going to go into the scientific details behind how ZigBee and Z-Wave work, but it's, in my opinion, it's one of the most reliable smart home communication methods that are out there. And the nice thing about ZigBee-based devices specifically is that Alexa recently came out with devices that actually have ZigBee hubs built into them. So in order to connect to your ZigBee-based devices, you actually don't need any intermediate hub to control them. So if you have an Echo Plus, an Echo Show 10-inch 2nd or 3rd generation, or an Echo 4th generation, you can actually connect ZigBee devices directly to it without having some sort of hub in order to translate Wi-Fi signals to ZigBee, since Alexa can actually have ZigBee built into it now. So why is ZigBee much more reliable than Wi-Fi based devices? So in order to understand this, you kind of got to understand how Wi-Fi based devices actually work in your home. So if I connect a Wi-Fi based plug in my home and want to control it via Alexa, even though my Wi-Fi based plug is actually in my house and Alexa is actually within like a really close distance of my Wi-Fi based plug, the signal actually for me to control my plug actually leaves my home. So when I say Alexa, turn on plug, and I'm controlling a Wi-Fi based plug, that signal actually goes up to the Alexa server over Wi-Fi, over to the Wemo server if I'm using a Wemo plug over Wi-Fi, and then back down to my Wemo plug. So as you can see here, this is a pretty long path just to control a single plug. As you can imagine, there's a lot of things that can happen and go wrong in this path to control this plug, so it's not really reliable. ZigBee is actually a direct communication method because it just uses a radio frequency like signal that's local to control my plug. So when I say Alexa, turn on my plug, and it's a ZigBee based plug, it actually directly sends a signal within my home to control my plug, and then the plug can send a signal back to Alexa telling it it's on. So it creates its own network within your home, and it doesn't rely on leaving your home in order to control it. The other really great thing about ZigBee based devices is that they're a lot easier to set up and support than Wi-Fi based devices. So for Wi-Fi based devices, typically what you have to do is you have to, if I have a Wi-Fi based plug and I want to connect it to Alexa, I actually have to connect my plug individually to Alexa in a separate app, and then enable a skill within Alexa in order for Alexa to connect to my plug. So there's a lot of steps involved because I have to connect my plug to connect my plug to Wi-Fi, and then enable a separate skill in Alexa in order for my Alexa to discover my Wi-Fi plug. However, with ZigBee-based devices, if I want to set up a ZigBee-based device in my home and I have a Alexa that supports ZigBee, all that I have to do is plug my plug into the wall, go over to my Alexa device and say, Alexa, discover devices, and it finds the device. Since it's doesn't rely on Wi-Fi or doesn't rely on any skill in order to connect to Alexa, just by plugging the plug into the wall, and because my Alexa device is a built-in ZigBee hub, if I just tell it discover devices, it'll just find it directly in my home without any more steps. So it's really easy to set these up in people's homes. And if I have someone who I want to set up 10 plugs or 10 lights in their home with, ZigBee-based devices are a lot quicker and a lot more reliable than Wi-Fi-based devices. The other great thing about ZigBee-based devices is that they added a feature called local voice control. So this feature, which we'll talk about in the next slides as well to kind of explain how it works, actually allows me to use my Alexa-based systems to still control my ZigBee-based devices when my Wi-Fi goes down. So local voice control lets you use certain controls with ZigBee smart home devices when your Echo device with a built-in smart home hub isn't connected to the internet. Meaning my Alexa device can actually control my ZigBee-based devices completely offline. So in two separate situations, this is super beneficial. So number one, let's say I have someone who relies heavily on their smart home-based system to control their lights and fan and other ZigBee-based devices. So if their Wi-Fi goes down, they're still going to have access to those devices because they can still control them by voice because they're ZigBee-based. Number two, which I'll talk about how you do this a little bit later, is you can actually set someone up with an Alexa-based system if they don't have Wi-Fi at all. So I can actually, if somebody doesn't have Wi-Fi and they want to have the benefits of Alexa, I can actually set up a Alexa system in their home using ZigBee, since the local voice control allows me to set up Alexa systems in someone's home without Wi-Fi because they're ZigBee based and not Wi-Fi based. So how does local voice control work? So typically how Alexa works when you're controlling your plugs or other devices is when I tell Alexa to turn on a light and I speak to Alexa and Alexa hears my command, it has to go all the way up to the Alexa server to retrieve the command for light. So it has to use Wi-Fi in order to get to this command light, and then go all the way back down to my Alexa device to send over to my plug to turn it on. However, with local voice control, when I connect a ZigBee plug up to my Alexa, it actually loads that command locally on the Alexa system. Sort of like when you load an app on your phone. That app's always there even if you're not connected to Wi-Fi. So it loads that name locally onto the device itself. So now I can access this command even when it's not connected to Wi-Fi. So when I say Alexa, turn on light, it can retrieve this command locally, which is loaded onto the system, And then it can send the command over ZigBee, which doesn't need Wi-Fi, to control my light. So now I can control all my devices and don't even need Wi-Fi. So these steps here are how you'd set someone up. Let's say someone doesn't have Wi-Fi and you want to set them up with a Alexa-based system completely offline. The step number one is that you have to connect your Amazon Echo Plus to an account on Wi-Fi. So initially you do have to set your Alexa account up on Wi-Fi because the Alexa does need an account associated with it. So you connect your Echo Plus to an account on Wi-Fi. Then on Wi-Fi, you connect all your ZigBee devices to Alexa and then rename them to the desired names. Then you allow 24 hours for the devices to be loaded locally onto the Echo Plus. So that way you get those commands loaded locally onto the system. Once those commands are loaded locally, you can actually unplug the system completely and move it to a different location. So here's a picture just to demonstrate it. So on the left here is a picture of a house. So this could be like my house. So I would set up, let's say I want to set up someone else with an Alexa system that doesn't have Wi-Fi. So what I would do is I would plug my Alexa system into my home, and then I would connect it to Wi-Fi. And then I would connect all my ZigBee-based devices in my home, and then leave it 24 hours for the whole system to load, to allow those commands to load locally on the Alexa device itself. And then I can bring it over to my client's house, plug the whole system in, and then they'd be able to control all those devices by voice because I was able to load them using local voice control at my apartment. And this allows someone without Wi-Fi to get the benefits of Alexa using local voice control in ZigBee. So now that I talked a little bit about how devices communicate, and then a little bit too about how ZigBee devices work and the benefits of ZigBee, I'm going to talk a little bit about different specific devices that you can use for your clients or use yourself for different applications in the home. First, I want to talk about ZigBee devices. So ZigBee, there are different options for different types of devices out there for ZigBee. Unfortunately, ZigBee can't do everything in your home, but I'm just going to talk about my favorite devices for ZigBee-based devices, and then also the things you can use ZigBee for. So first, ZigBee devices for lights. So ZigBee devices for lights include things like the Hue Lightbulbs. So the Hue Lightbulbs actually use ZigBee to communicate. So if I have a Alexa-based device that has ZigBee built into it, I can actually connect my Hue-based light bulbs directly to my Alexa and be able to control them without any Hue hub or anything. So I can actually control the Hue light bulbs directly with Alexa and get those benefits that we talked previously about using ZigBee. Next is the ZigBee smart plugs. So devices like the Savannah ZigBee smart plug and the INNR ZigBee plugs are my favorite smart plugs that are out there that communicate over ZigBee. And once again, these devices will plug directly in and Alexa can communicate directly with them using ZigBee. One downside of the Hue light bulbs compared to another solution that I'm going to talk about next is that the Hue light bulbs require that they always be powered by electricity. So the Hue light bulbs actually have a receiver in them. So when your light switch is flipped on, that receiver needs to be powered all the time in order for Alexa to communicate with it, because that receiver allows the Hue bulbs to be controlled by Alexa. However, when somebody flips their light switch off, that receiver no longer has power to it. So now someone can't control their Hue bulbs anymore by voice because the receiver no longer has power to it. So one big problem with this is that if you have a bunch of Hue bulbs connected in a room and a caregiver or someone flips the light switch off, the person can no longer control their Hue bulbs by voice. One solution to this is there's a company called Lutron that just recently came out with a device that sits over the top of the light switch. And what this device does is it allows you to control your ZigBee-based devices using this switch here, and it doesn't flip your light switch on and off. So it has a little button on it that you can press, and it can control your ZigBee-based Hue light bulbs using the switch instead of controlling it with your switch on the wall. Another solution to this is the third reality switch, and this is actually my preference for overhead lights in the home. So what this device is a motorized light switch. So it has a little motor in it, and this little motor can actually flip the light switch on and off. And it just pops right over the top of your existing light switch. And it doesn't require any wiring of the light switch. All that you have to do is unscrew the screws on the top and the bottom, and then screw them back in with these little pieces over the top, and it just snaps in over the top of your existing light switch. And this works for both toggle switches and paddle switches. And then once again, it just has a little motor in it, and it flips the light switch on and off. And the nice thing about this is that it has a button on the face. So if a caregiver or a family member wants to turn the light switch on and off manually and doesn't want to do it by voice with Alexa, they can actually just tap the button here, and it will actually just flip the light switch on and off. So it doesn't interfere with the other person's ability to control it by voice, because these connect directly with Alexa. And when somebody hits the button on it, it'll actually communicate back to Alexa what the new state of the light is. So it doesn't mess up with the other person's ability to do it by voice, and it doesn't interfere with caregiver or family member's ability to control them manually as well. Other ZigBee devices that are out there, so ZigBee door locks. So ZigBee door locks allow someone to control their door lock by voice. So it allows them to say, Alexa, unlock the door, and then it locks and unlocks the door by voice. So one reason we use this a lot in the homes is because a lot of people want that security of being able to lock and unlock their door by voice. And some people have caregivers that come and go, and so they need to be able to let people in and out of their homes. So the nice thing about this device is that it's ZigBee based once again. So if Wi-Fi goes down, they'll still have access to their lock, which is super important. And the other nice thing about these locks is that they're actually code secured. So when I say, Alexa, unlock my door, Alexa will actually ask for a 4-digit passcode, and I have to speak that passcode in order for me to unlock my door. So it's a pretty secure way of being able to unlock your door by voice as well. And it's not something everyone can do unless they know your passcode. And then it also has a keypad too that you can give to caregivers so they can actually manually put in the code as well, so they can control it manually as well. So this works really good with a device I'm going to talk about later, which is the video doorbell. So then the person can see who's at their door and also talk to Alexa to unlock it by voice. One caveat of door locks is that they do need to be installed. So you might have to get a locksmith or someone to actually install the lock for them. And they're not always compatible with every single door. So I would make sure to do your research first, make sure it is compatible with the person's door before you get it for someone. And also make sure that it can be installed by someone as well, because it's not something that's plug and play like the plugs or the other devices we talked about in the previous slides. The next device, this device is a little bit more technical. So some people might not understand as much the application for it, but it's a ZigBee Relay. So all that a relay is pretty much an electronic button pusher. So anything that requires pushing a button, you can actually use this device and control it with Alexa. So one application I use for this is a lot of places, if you are in a nursing home or when I worked in the clinic, we have nurse call systems, and they use plugs. So you can plug the nurse call system into the wall using these devices here, and they work so the person can access a switch in order to call the nurse. One problem with that is that not everyone can access a button to call the nurse, especially if they're mobility limited. So this device here actually allows someone to control their call light system by voice, so they can actually call the nurse by voice. So I do have the designs for this device here, and it's completely available on this site here. So if you follow this link, it'll actually take you to the designs for how to make your own call light system using Alexa and this ZigBee Relay. Now I'm going to talk about Wi-Fi based devices. So we talked about pretty much all the ZigBee devices that are available out there. But in some applications, you actually have to use Wi-Fi based devices, because there's no way we can actually use ZigBee based devices for specific applications in the home, because ZigBee can't do everything in the home. So things like for Wi-Fi plugs, lights, and locks, I typically don't ever recommend anyone use plugs, lights, or locks that are Wi-Fi based, because ZigBee is available. So ZigBee is only available for plugs, lights, and locks. But since it's available for those devices, there's no point in using Wi-Fi based devices, because ZigBee is more reliable and Wi-Fi has a lot of problems. So I recommend people don't use Wi-Fi based devices for those applications. One application I use for Wi-Fi based devices is for doorbells. So the Ring Video Doorbell is a fantastic device, like I talked about previously, that actually works really well with those voice activated locks. So for people who want to be able to control their front door by voice and be able to unlock and lock the door, one other important thing is they want to be able to see who's at the door before they unlock or lock it by voice. So the Ring Video Doorbell actually connects directly with the Echo Show based devices. And when the person says, Alexa, answer the door, it'll actually show them a video who's at the door. and it'll actually allow them to communicate and talk with the person who's at the front door. So it actually has a little intercom in it, and you can actually speak through your Alexa device and talk to whoever's at the front door. And you can also see them as well. So this works amazingly with the voice activated locks, because the person can answer the door by voice and then unlock the door by voice using the lock. The next device, which is very similar to the doorbell device, is the Ring video camera. So the Ring video camera works very similarly to the doorbell, in that it is a video-based system that allows you to see who's in different areas of your home using your Alexa show. So if I set one of these up in my living room, I can actually say, Alexa, show me the living room, and it'll actually show me a video of the living room on my Echo Show device. And it also has an intercom in it, so I can actually speak to whoever's in the living room as well. So this is important for someone who may be in their bed a lot of the time. So if somebody needs to be able to transfer in and out of bed, so at certain times of the day they're in their bed, and they want to be able to see different areas of their home for their own security, they can actually have an Alexa system right next to their bed, and then have these set up throughout their home, and they can speak to their Alexa device, and then they can see different areas of their home when they're in bed. So one really great device this works with is the new Echo Show device. So the new Echo Show device actually has a pivoting screen. So this allows the screen to actually move towards the person based on where their voice is. So if they're in different areas of the room at different times of the day, the screen actually rotates for when they speak, and it'll actually rotate the screen towards them. So if they say, Alexa, show me the living room, or Alexa, show me the front door, the screen will rotate towards them. It'll actually show them who's at the front door, and it'll face them so they can see who's there. So once again, these systems work really well with the Alexa-based show devices. Another application for Wi-Fi-based devices is thermostats. So the Nest thermostat is one of my favorite thermostat-based devices. This is really important for someone who needs to be able to control their temperature in their home. So a lot of people, individuals with disabilities, are very temperature sensitive, and they need their temperature set to different points at different times of the day. So being able to access their temperature, control that independently, is super important for them. So we do a lot of these Nest-based thermostat systems and set these up in people's homes. One important thing to note about these systems, though, is they do need to be wired into their home. So their old thermostat system needs to be unwired, and this system needs to be wired into their current system. So you may need an electrician or someone who has a little bit of electrician expertise in order to install it in their home. It's not super complicated. It is only a few wires, but it is important, if you're not comfortable with that, to get someone to install it for you. So what this system allows you to do is allows you to control the temperature by voice. So Alexa, turn the temperature to 66 degrees. It also lets you change the settings of your temperature by voice, whether it's on cooling or heating or eco mode, and those types of settings. So it allows you pretty much complete control of your thermostat system by voice. Another device, which is kind of a niche device, is actually a voice activated faucet. So this is the Delta IQ Voice IQ faucet, and it actually allows you to turn your faucet on and off by voice. And it also allows you to dispense specific amounts of water by voice as well. One specific application I found for this is those individuals with maybe C7 or C8 level injuries, who are in a power chair and they don't have enough grasp in order to grasp the handle of the faucet to turn it on and off. This device is actually super beneficial for them because it allows them to access their faucet, because usually individuals are able to hold a cup up to their sink, but they're not able to actually get far enough up to actually flip the faucet on themselves. So they can actually have an Alexa right next to their sink and tell Alexa to turn the faucet on for them. And once again, it can also dispense specific amounts of water by voice as well. Now we're going to talk about another area. TV access is a super important area, and I think it's one of the things we get the most requests for out of any other sort of application in the home. And it's, I think, one of the more important areas too for people to be able to access, because entertainment's a huge part of people's lives, and being able to access things like the news and other things on TV are super important. So I'd say overall, TV access is one of the largest requests we get out of any of our clients. So my favorite device for TV access is the Logitech Harmony Hub. Unfortunately, Logitech Harmony Hub was actually recently discontinued, but you can actually still get it through eBay and other outlets right now too. And I actually still recommend people try to get the Harmony Hub if they can, just because it's, I think, so much more capable of controlling things, and it's it allows much more access than the other TV devices that are out there. So I still do recommend people get the Harmony Hub if they can get access to it. And I'll talk a little bit more about the next coming slides, why the Harmony Hub is much better than the other smart home based devices. So the Harmony Hub is a Wi-Fi based infrared and Bluetooth hub. So it allows Alexa to communicate with your infrared based devices like your TV, and it also connects to Bluetooth based entertainment devices like Fire Sticks, Roku based devices, and pretty much any entertainment device you have. It has an IR database that contains about 10,000, actually I think 100,000 plus devices, and it's constantly being added to all the time. So pretty much any device that has infrared, Bluetooth, or pretty much any entertainment device in your home can actually be controlled by the Harmony Hub if it's programmed correctly. And it can be used, can be programmed with Alexa for voice control of any button on most remotes. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in the coming slides. So the Harmony Hub, it allows complete control of your TV with Alexa. So by default, if you just want to be able to control your channels, volume, and power, those are some basic functions it can control. It can also be programmed to control streaming devices like Fire Stick, Roku, and Apple TV. Once again, the list is super long, so pretty much any entertainment device out there can be accessed with the Harmony. And you can use the Harmony app or software to create custom activities to allow Alexa to voice control any navigation function on the TV or streaming devices. And you can actually use this link here to check if you're curious about is this device compatible with the Harmony, and you can use this link here to check if your your entertainment device is compatible with Harmony. I use this all the time. If somebody has a specific model of their TV, or they want to know if they can control this device by voice with Alexa, I use this link here to check if the Harmony can link with it and control it using Alexa. So here's just showing an example of how I would program the Harmony to control different functions on a remote. So once again, I can actually program the Harmony myself to control any button on the remote I want. And that's one beneficial of the Harmony over any other TV-based smart home device that's out there. So I can actually, let's say somebody has a smart TV and they want to be able to use the navigation buttons to access their smart TV menu. I can actually create custom voice commands in Alexa and the Harmony to program all of the navigation commands into the remote. So move right, move up, move left, move down, and select that and back, so the person can completely navigate their smart home TV by voice, and they don't need any caregiver assistance to access their smart home features. Another great thing about the Harmony is that it's widely compatible across many different devices. So a lot of people just think TV when they think the Harmony, whereas actually it can control even computers like Windows computers, Mac computers. It can also control game consoles, like it can link to the PlayStation, it can link to the Xbox, and it can even link to the Nintendo Wii. And there's a lot of other devices out there for different applications that it can link to. So that's one great thing about the Harmony, is that I can actually link it to control pretty much any entertainment device and even more devices in their home, and actually link all those devices to Alexa to allow pretty much any voice command to control those devices. And another thing that people don't think about too is the Harmony actually can control air conditioners. So a lot of air conditioners that have remotes on them actually are infrared based. So Harmony can actually connect to those infrared based devices, and I can program voice commands into Alexa so they can actually control all the functions of their air conditioners by voice as well. So with the same Harmony, I can actually allow them to control their TV by voice at the same time as control their air conditioner. The next device I want to talk about that's for TV is called the Fire TV Cube. I referred to it a little bit more earlier as well. This is a Alexa device that actually has infrared built in, so you can actually set up this Alexa device directly, control your TV and cable box and other devices. So it's really easy to set up, and it has a lot of built-in voice commands already, so it's not as complicated as the Harmony Hub. One thing about the Harmony Hub is that it is pretty complicated to set up, and it does have a pretty big learning curve. But once you learn how to use the Harmony, you learn how to program it. I'd say it's one of the most functional smart home devices out there for controlling entertainment devices. The Fire TV Cube, one limitation of it is that it does have those built-in voice commands, which is great because it makes the setup easy. But the problem is you can't add to that. So if a person wants additional commands beyond those ones that are built in, you can't add any more commands to those because Alexa is just going to limit to you whatever is built into its system already. So it's really easy to set up and integrate with specific TVs, cable boxes, and sound bars. But it just doesn't have that customizability that the Harmony Hub has. And it also doesn't work with all TVs and sound bars like the Harmony Hub does, because the Harmony Hub has a huge database, whereas the Fire Cube has a decent sized database, but it doesn't work with some of the older TVs or the TVs that have kind of unique brands like the Harmony Hub. So you do have to be a little careful about getting the Fire Cube because it doesn't work with all TVs and infrared based devices. There's also some just other third-party infrared-based hubs out there. So I'd say my second favorite one behind the Harmony Hub is probably the Broadlink Hub. This device is not nearly as functional as the Harmony Hub is, but since the Harmony Hub is kind of phasing out, this is probably my next favorite. And then a cheaper version, a cheaper option that's out there is the Moe's Wi-Fi Smart Remote. It's got similar function to the Broadlink Hub. It just not quite as reliable, but it can do similar functions, and it's a little bit cheaper than the Broadlink Hub as well. I think it's about $20 or $30 versus the Broadlink Hub, which is about $60. One thing I get a lot for people is they want to be able to control multiple TVs in their home. So they might have a TV in their bedroom and a TV in their living room, and they want to be able to control both of those by voice. One thing that people need to know, though, is that you actually need two separate Alexas and two separate Alexa accounts and two separate Harmonies or two separate Wi-Fi infrared-based hubs in order to control two separate TVs. The reason for that is if I have one Alexa device and I connect two different Harmony hubs up to my Alexa device and set those up in two different rooms for my TVs, and I say, Alexa, turn on TV, it gets confused because it doesn't know which TV I'm talking about because I have two TVs set up with that same Alexa device. So Alexa actually limits you to only connect one TV up to one account. So if I have someone who has two separate TVs in their house, I actually need to set them up on two separate Alexa accounts, and I need each of those Alexa accounts connected to a separate Harmony hub for a separate TV. So once again, if you have two TVs in your home and you want to control two separate TVs by voice with Alexa, you need two separate Alexa accounts and two separate Wi-Fi based infrared remotes. So we talked a little bit about TV access. Now we're moving on to other areas in the home like fan access. So some people have fans in their home that are controlled by a remote, and those remotes rely on radio frequency for control. So for radio frequency control devices, you can get a device called the Bond Hub. So this is similar to the Harmony Hub, where it allows Alexa to communicate to other devices in your home, but instead of controlling infrared-based devices, it can control radio frequency-based devices, like ceiling fans, shades, or fireplaces. So the Bond Bridge actually you can use your radio frequency remote. So if you have a remote control fan in your home, you can program the Bond Hub to control your radio frequency-based fan. And you can also connect it to things like shades or blinds. So some blinds actually are remote controlled. So if a person wants to be able to control their blinds and make them go up and down by voice, you can connect the Bond Hub to your radio frequency controlled blinds to allow someone to control their blinds by voice. So one reason we want to do this is because, once again, temperature control is a really important thing for individuals with disabilities because they need a little bit more temperature regulation. So being able to control their fan and their shades in their home to control how much sun is coming in is super important. So if they have a remote control fan, they can now control that by voice using the Bond Hub. And if they have remote control shades in their home, they can also control that using the Bond Hub as well. If they don't have remote control shades and they want to be able to access their blinds in their home by voice, you can actually get remote control shades for someone. And so one company I like the most is called Springblinds, and you can actually get Somfy-based remote control blinds from them, and you can get these installed in their home. So now their shades are remote controlled, and then you can connect the Bond Hub to them. So now the person can control their blinds completely by voice. So you can actually specify the specific size of your blinds using at Springblinds for your Somfy blinds, and what style and color they are as well. So this is my favorite site just because it's really customizable. One downside of installing blinds is that you have to install them. So like me personally, I don't have the expertise to install blinds in someone's home. I can connect them to Alexa, and I know the technical aspects of that, but it does require you to drill new blinds in and take out their old blinds. But this does allow them to now control the amount of sun that's coming in, and that temperature control is super important for people. And we actually have done a lot of remote control blinds in the last couple of years, just because that temperature control aspect is so important. So once again, this is the blind setup. So I can connect my Bond Hub to my Alexa, and then connect my Bond Hub to my different remotes for controlling my ceiling fan, or for controlling my Somfy blinds. And I can control all the functions of my fan, like controlling the specific speeds of my fan, controlling it on and off, and controlling the light on my fan, then also control the up and down of my blinds, so the person gets a little bit more temperature control in their home. Lastly, the last application I want to talk about, and something we've been doing a little bit more of, is power door access. So a lot of people want to be able to open their power doors by voice. So in order to do this, there's a couple different ways you can link Alexa to control someone's power door by voice. One option is using a garage door opener. So there's these Wi-Fi based garage door openers that actually people typically use to control their garage door to make it go up and down using Alexa. But you can actually wire these directly to someone's power door, and they can actually connect that to Alexa then, and they can actually control their power door and open it, close it by voice using Alexa. One downside of using the Next garage door opener is that you have to wire it to the door, so it does require a little bit of knowledge of how to wire a device to a power door, and you do have to get the spec sheet for their current power door and know how to wire this device into their power door, and then link it to Alexa for voice control. So there's a little bit more technical knowledge that's needed there. It's not super complicated, but I would recommend the next application over this one because it doesn't require as much setup as the Next garage door opener. So the company Open Sesame recently released a device that's a wireless power door opener. So this device actually has a little remote built inside of it, and it's actually wireless, and it connects directly to Alexa to allow you to control your power door by voice. So this device connects to Alexa, and then this device sends a radio frequency signal to your door. So it acts like a little radio frequency remote control for your door. And then you can use Alexa to control your door by voice. And it doesn't require any wiring. All you have to do is plug it in, connect it to Wi-Fi, and then connect it to Alexa. So it's a lot more straightforward than the Next garage door opener. So I would recommend this over the Next garage door opener for voice control of the power door. That's my presentation for installation for assistive technology in the home. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat for me and I'll answer them now.
Thank you, Drew. That was wonderful. I've got a couple of questions in the Q&A portion ready for you. I am going to go ahead and give out a prize right now, though. I did a random roll out of our participants list, and I have Suzanne Anthony. You have won your choice of either an Amazon Echo, or a set of smart plugs. And I will reach out to you after this meeting. You can go ahead and chime in if you want, but I can reach out to you after this meeting and I'll get you all of the information to be able to get that over to you. All right, Suzanne, I got an awesome in the Q&A from Suzanne. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to some questions that we have that came up throughout the presentation. I have a question that's asking if you have to keep the light switch on to keep the communication channel open for voice commands, does your energy bill say the lights were on all the time?
So the answer to that is no. So your energy bill will not show that the lights were on all the time. So the only thing, when your light switch is on and if you have Hue bulbs plugged into them and they're off, the only thing that'll be drawing power is that ZigBee, that little ZigBee receiver inside of the light bulb. And the ZigBee receiver takes almost no energy in order for it to stay idle, because it's not actually using any power, that much power at all to communicate with Alexa. So it'll go up. It's not going to really go up at all. It takes like minimal amount of power and you wouldn't notice anything on your power bill. And the Hue lights are actually pretty efficient. So it actually, your power bill might actually go down because the Hue bulbs are actually a little bit more efficient than regular light bulbs. So no.
Great, thanks, Drew. So our next question is, what if the batteries die in the keypad? They're talking about the lock on the door. Does this create the same problem as the digital safe, a lock that can't be unlocked at all because no signal can get to the keypad?
So you can still manually unlock the door. So you still have there's three ways you can unlock the door. So you can either use a key, you can use the keypad, or you can use Alexa. If the batteries die in it, you can no longer use Alexa to unlock it by voice. And I believe the keypad might no longer be accessible as well. One really nice thing about the locks, though, is they give you a pretty loud warning sign, like it makes a beep noise if the batteries start to go down on them. So it kind of signals to the person to change the batteries out. But that is one important thing to note, is that those locks are battery powered. They do last a long time, but it's important to let the person know, if you set that up for them, that they do need to switch the batteries on their lock. Otherwise, they will no longer be able to access it by voice with Alexa.
Great, thank you. So next up we have, can you attach this pivot system to a robotic device, the kind with a monitor on top and remote control wheels underneath? Do we know which device they were referring to with the pivot system? Dawn, why don't you go ahead and elaborate on which device you were speaking on?
I think it was the Alexa, the Echo Show device.
Yep,
the one
Echo
with the
pivot.
The Echo, yeah. So the Echo pivoting show device, you wouldn't be able to put it probably on something with wheels because it's not a wireless device. It doesn't run on batteries. It runs on a plug on the wall. So unless you had some way to power the device wirelessly, you wouldn't be able to put it on something with wheels, probably.
All right. And we have another question that's asking, do any of these devices work with Apple products like HomeKit?
Some of them do. HomeKit is, unfortunately, I think a little bit more limited compared to other smart home systems. Like Google Assistant is a little bit more smart home friendly. Alexa is the most smart home friendly. Apple HomeKit's really picky about the devices it allows you to connect to. So like the Hue Lightbulbs can connect to the HomeKit, but you need a Hue hub. And then I believe some of the other devices I talked about do, but I would double check compatibility. HomeKit in general, like I said, is pretty limited on what devices it actually can connect to control. So I usually don't recommend the HomeKit for environment, for like someone's main environment control system.
All right, thank you. And we have one final question, unless another one comes in before we finish up. Can they be the blinds that go from bottom up, or are they just from the top that go down? When we're discussing the blinds that are able to be voice controlled.
So the blinds can go, you can voice control the blinds to go up, down, and then stop as well. You can also do, so there's like blinds like this. So you can put voice commands in for up, down, and then for them to stop. You can also get I believe these are shades, I believe. You can also get voice controlled shades, and I've done those for people as well. Like actually these are the shades, these are the blinds. But the blinds, you can actually get voice control blinds that open and close as well. Those are the ones that go like this. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, you can do voice commands for any up, down, stop, and then you can get the ones like this as well.
All right, and we did get another person put another question in. Do you need to update the Hue light bulbs?
So the Hue light bulbs, I don't think need to be updated or anything. They're once they come, everything's already built into them, so there's no need to do any updates with the Hue light bulbs. Typically, the only thing if you get something that's Hue and needs updated, it's typically the hub. But if you have an Alexa device with a built-in ZigBee hub, you don't need anything updated like that.
All right, great. That is it for all of our Q&A. Thank you so much for coming here and joining us today, Drew. That was such a fantastic and informative presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. And please don't forget that this is going to be a continuing series every other month. So our next one is coming up in November. And the next topic we'll be discussing are financing options. So you don't want to miss it. You can go to the CFILC trainings and events page to register, same place that you registered to attend this one. I'd like to thank you all for coming today, and please have an excellent rest of your day.